I want to turn now to the eviction moratorium because the CDC passed another one last week to help Americans stay in their homes. But landlords have gone to court to challenge President Biden's extension of the coronavirus eviction moratorium, saying that they have footed the bill for tens of thousands in unpaid rent. That's money that they fear that they will never get back. We're joined now by Lucinda Lilley, Southern California Rental Housing Association, and Yahoo Finance's Danny Romero. Thank you both for joining us. So, Lucinda, we know that this eviction moratorium helps tenants, but let's just talk about the flip side as we hear about some of those landlords filing those lawsuits. What about those landlords who say that they are going to be forced to foot the bill to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars? Other landlords who say that they're going to have to sell their homes because they can no longer afford to keep them.
You're absolutely right. There are so many rental property owners, housing providers who are independent rental owners. They're not large corporations. And when they don't receive rent, they still have to find a way to pay their mortgage for the property, to pay the water, the lights, to pay the insurance. There's been no relief for them on that particular front.
And Lucinda, what is some of the stories that you have heard from landlords about the interactions that they're experiencing with tenants?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I can tell you some of our own stories. And in my company in Southern California, we do manage for independent rental owners. I have one client who owns 5 rental units. She has one renter who hasn't paid rent since April of last year and is now delinquent to the tune of $21,000. Now, in California, we do have emergency rental assistance program, and it's rather robust. The governor did do us a favor there. The problem is that sometimes if a renter is not willing to participate in that program, the rental housing provider doesn't have any way to go ahead and collect that money. So they're left holding the bag.
I was talking to one of your members in your part of your association, and they had said that some people are, finding an excuse to say that they can't pay rent, but they can buy a boat. Is that something that you have heard?
I've not personally witnessed that, but there are stories of that. There are on-site managers who are reporting that their renters aren't paying, but they're showing up with new vehicles. Again, that's third-hand information for me, but there are reports of that for sure.
And, obviously there was an opinion piece in the Washington Post that said the eviction moratorium is certainly illegal. Do you think with all of these lawsuits, I know we have a lawsuit in California in regards to this, will win in the courts?
The lawsuit that the Southern California Rental Housing Association has filed in federal court has been denied, and we immediately filed an appeal. One might wonder why we would file an appeal on some legislation that's due to expire, quite frankly, today. But what we're seeing is this overabundance of legislation against rental housing providers and this pitting of renters versus rental housing providers. And we want it to stop. We need to have that part of what's going on just stop. We need to work together. We need to work and understand the interdependence between rental housing providers and renters alike. We need to understand that the eviction system nationally is broken and it needs to be fixed, and we can work together during that. But ultimately, it's the interdependence that we need to focus on, education, not legislation.
I do want to ask, however, because we've heard from a lot of housing advocates, just even on this show, that say that, frankly, these eviction moratoriums, while they are and they can be painful to the landlords, that there is assistance to help some of those landlords whole. But that right now, if some of those landlords are able to remove those tenants for lack of payment, that we are going to be facing a huge housing crisis. We could be facing a homeless crisis. So really, what do you see as the best balance here? And when do you think that balance should be struck as we continue to see these eviction moratoriums extended?
I'm so glad that you brought that up. The emergency rental assistance programs are rather robust. They vary from state to state and from area to area. In California, we have a 100% available to make our renters and our housing providers whole. There's a challenge with it, however. It's all done online. There are a number of rental housing providers who are not technologically savvy, and navigating the application process is difficult. Then there's the fact that the renter themselves has to provide certain amount of information in order for that that rental assistance payment to be made. Oftentimes we're seeing, even in our own portfolio, that renters are loath to do that. For what reason, I'm not quite sure. The story I told you about the lady who owes the $21,000 to the rental housing provider with only 5 units, she's near the end goal to getting that rental assistance, but she needs to provide one more piece of information, and she is apparently dodging and refusing to provide it. So I'm not sure what that's all about. But again, it's not about pitting renters versus rental housing providers. It's about us all working together to get through this. As far as an eviction avalanche, as I keep hearing the news reporting it, we're in the business of providing housing. Evictions are bad business. It costs everybody money. It costs time. It's painful. It's heartbreaking. We don't want to see people homeless. We want to work with our renters in order to solve the problems.
All right, we're going to leave that there. Lucinda Lilley from the Southern California Rental Housing Association. Yahoo Finance's Danny Romero. Thank you both for joining us for this conversation.